I know I'm poking the bear with the title, especially with the sentiment the community at large is expressing, but hopefully you're watching, and hopefully by the end you'll understand why I don't want Destiny 3. All I ask is that you follow along as I explain this to you, and keep in mind that this video comes from a place of love. First though, I figure I'd give you some background, as you're probably confused as to why a cyberpunk tabletop channel is suddenly putting out content related to a live service looter shooter. Before I was an augmented mercenary on the streets of Night City, I was a guardian in service to the Traveler and its light. That is to say, I played an ungodly, unholy amount of Destiny, both Destiny and all that DLC, and Destiny 2 up through Forsaken. I wasn't a beta tester, nor did I start with vanilla. No, I started at the end of year 1 before the Taken King, but after the House of Wolves and the Dark Below were being packaged alongside vanilla. I think the title of the package was something generic like Destiny the Collection. Anyway, I played 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and 12 hours daily on Saturdays and Sundays, and I carried that all the way up through the release of the Taken King. However, when Rise of Iron released, I had entered my current relationship, and so I scaled back my playtime drastically to just 3 hours twice a week and 6 hours on the weekend. Then I had my firstborn, and I ended up having to scale that back way further. Anyway, Destiny 2 released, and I missed picking up the base game, but when Forsaken released, I picked up Destiny 2 alongside Forsaken, and again picked up the Gauntlet as a Guardian. I played through that campaign, maxed light level, had to put it down again as we had our second child among other life events, but by then I was a solo player, the random in a fire team, and I was okay with being solo, but I didn't have a group, so putting it down was a whole lot easier. And for the subsequent years, I would only pick it up once in a while to go do some patrols or, shoot some random aliens on the moon, and then I would put it back down. Then last year, a new friend floated through work who ended up rekindling my interest in the game, and I picked it up casually again, just in time for the Edge of Fate. I had plans to pick up Renegades, but my sentiment to that release was less than positive, so I had plans to leave again. Basically, the sentiment was predictable. I was incredibly tired of the Star Wars content that was coming out, and when Renegades came out and I saw the lightsabers, I kind of rolled my eyes and just said, well, yeah, I'm gonna put it down. That is until the announcement of the June 9th update. May 26, I saw what I thought was a very weird video from the lore channel My Name is Bife, titled Grieving a Video Game and the Loss of Destiny as a Third Space. If you don't know who he is, definitely check him out. He's very well researched. I tend to turn his channel on when I'm at work and just listen, kind of like I do with Wisefish if I'm in the mood for cyberpunk. Anyway, after watching, or rather listening to that video, I had started the stages of grief with denial. And like the rest of you, I signed the petitions, did the Twitter/X hashtags. I made that really bad unscripted video about a week ago, detailing my anger and so on. I went through the 7 stages, fueled by the anger at the loss of great content. I played a bunch of Destiny 2 over the past few weeks, and I've had a blast. More than that, I felt accomplished. As I was playing this game, I felt like I was actually getting something done, like my character was actually progressing as I was picking up loot, and I was making it through the Monument of Triumph at a relatively decent pace. Now, granted, it does help when you have all of the expansions at your hand, but regardless, this was the most accomplished I have ever felt playing Destiny since the first Destiny series. As I was playing, listening to lore from My Name is Bife, and advocating on social media for the creation of more Destiny content, and just generally learning about the state of Bungie as a whole, something was nagging at the back of my mind. If this could happen to Bungie, and by extension Destiny, what did the state of the games market actually look like? I mean, the Steam machine is 1,000 for a base model, PS5s are almost there, and a decades-old development studio responsible for two of the most lucrative, most famous intellectual properties of all time is looking at closing its doors. What in the actual fuck did I miss in the past few years, and why? Instead of immediately taking to Google and researching, I wanted to get down to why it was that I missed all this news. And it wasn't that I was just ignoring the news as a whole when it comes to video games. It was more like I wasn't looking at the right side of the hemisphere for the problems. Like, I was thinking about the games that I was playing at the time and thinking about the games that I was excited for in the past couple years. Games like Metal Gear Solid Delta, Persona 3 Reload, Silent Hill 2 Remake, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Final Fantasy 7. Well, I mean, the first two iterations of Final Fantasy 7. About 5 seconds later, I remember saying to myself, hey, dumbass, none of those are American titles. You don't play Western games outside of Destiny and Diablo. The closest thing to the West that you play is Cyberpunk 2077. This is where I was introduced to several creators, and quite a few actually. The notable ones were I had found Aztec Ross, however you pronounce his name, and then Paul Tassi. And from Paul Tassi, I completely stopped watching Aztec Ross and moved on to, again, Paul Tassi and this guy named Mug Thief. You know, Paul Tassi kind of bridges the gap from Destiny content creators to regular games industry, and then from him, Mug Thief kind of gives me the updates that I needed. And after I had gotten a general kind of understanding of what the games industry had been like for the past 10 years, you know, a general estimation, I formulated my first Google search. Studio closures between the years 2023 and 2026. 24 studios closed since 2023, 4 of which were from Ubisoft Studios, which I'm not surprised about. I had known previous that they were a mess of a studio with really predatory business practices, and they're wrapped up in a whole bunch of shit with the Stop Killing Games initiative. However, some of the studios on this list did kind of surprise me, like Volition Games, who developed Saints Row and Red Faction, and those were two different series that I spent quite a bit of time with. And then Sanzaru Games, who made Spyro and Sly Cooper, the remasters, and then the 4th Sly Cooper game that came out in like 2013. The second surprising bit was that 6 of the studios on that list closed before even shipping their first game. And one studio, Dark Outlaw Games, was meant to entirely refine, polish, and develop games from other studios to publish, shut down. Sony's little incubator was responsible for nothing before its closure. Here on screen is a list if you want to pause and take a look at these studios. I've also kind of included a little blurb of the most interesting game that I found that these companies have developed. I then kind of shifted focus to live service failures, which led me to an article by GamingBolt. 15 live service titles that failed, and forgive me for stating the obvious. The failed games mostly had missing or poorly developed mechanics, which led to low player retention. Unless your name is Concord, then the mechanics it did have were just bad on top of having missing mechanics. The other major similarity was that they were trying to deal in on the popularity of the trendsetters of the genre, leading to clones of games like Fortnite and Splatoon, or hero shooters like Overwatch, or looter shooters like Destiny and Borderlands. These clones ended up coming off as soulless cash grabs meant to capitalize on the success of the respective genres' popular figureheads, which led to low player retention, which led to live service failure. Focusing a little bit on the article, a quote kind of stuck out to me, one that kind of put me in the mindset of the end of Destiny's life cycle, the kind of pattern that Destiny falls into, where there's a really good expansion, then like one or two really bad ones, then a really good one, culminating in the Edge of Fate followed by Renegades. I still have yet to play either of these, so I will not comment. These are just things that I heard tossed around. But here's the quote. Following the underwhelming release of Mass Effect Andromeda, fans were expecting a redemption arc from developer BioWare with Anthem. The game looked really promising with all of the markings of a great action-adventure game, but the final product was anything but. A rushed development cycle and poor management from higher-ups meant that much of the game's creative parts were crushed under the weight of business decisions, and Anthem ultimately became a massive flop. Clearly, Destiny was anything but a flop. I'm not saying that about Destiny as a whole, but I don't think it would be remiss of me to say that some of the expansions had fallen a little bit short. At least even in the little bit that I was playing of Destiny this past month. But poor management both at the creative and financial level definitely aided in the downfall of this beloved franchise, and the decision to develop Marathon when the studio clearly was not ready to be a multi-property company could definitely be touted as poor management from higher ups. I don't even want to touch the financials. The absolute misappropriation of funds was probably the most disgusting part of what I had found out listening to the state of Bungie as a whole. I mean, Pete Parsons, how are you going to stand up in front of your entire company and brag that you spent like $2 million on a bunch of vintage muscle cars and then a week later lay off like a shit ton of people? I mean, it's no wonder that the CEO of Sony pointed out the poor financials. Oh my god, I don't even have words, man. The CEO pointed out that there was a misappropriation of business funds going on in the company. And then for you to turn around and overvalue this company and sell it off to Sony, it's no wonder they were pissed off. And Paul Tassie's insiders can say as much as they want that there was no ill will and it was all numbers for why Destiny was shut down in the first place, but come on, they had to put down on paper that they ate shit on $765 million because of this shithead. That's a big ass number, and I would be pissed. And Mr. Parsons isn't exactly in studio to, answer for his crimes. So it's no wonder that Bungie and by extension Destiny became the proverbial whipping boy. So, I mean, there's got to be a conversation going on with the suits about shutting Bungie down in the future. And because they can't just outright shut down a company with that much renown, the plan would make sense for the plan to be to leave them with a game that underperforms. Watch the company flounder with that underperforming game, and then ultimately just shut the studio doors down. Because I mean, even with Herman Hulst going through and I'm gonna offer you a quote from Herman Hulst from his internal email about the layoffs at Bungie. As Bungie recently shared in its Destiny 2 update, the studio has begun a new journey following the release of the game's final live service content update. What Bungie has accomplished with Destiny over the past decade has been truly remarkable. The franchise has left a lasting mark on players and the industry, and everyone who contributed to its success should be proud of what they helped create. If that's the case, this game had way more to do, and none of what you just said makes sense. Going back to a different quote, if Destiny 2 did not live up to your expectations, why the fuck are you putting all of your eggs in Marathon's basket? Marathon I'm not going to comment on how good or bad the game is. I'm just gonna share the sentiment that from what I've been seeing, it needed more polish. And I'm just this has already been rehashed, so I'm just gonna go into the last little bit that just kind of outlines a hypothetical. So right now, Destiny 2 is the best it's been in a long time. I would assume that's the general sentiment here. That, and well, Bungie could have done this a long time ago, but anyway, let's go ahead and imagine a scenario where what we actually did, what all of the complaining, all of the yelling and bitching at Sony in their comments on literally every single piece of media that they put out on social media, every single stream, let's say all of that worked. And we got more Destiny content greenlit. My concern is that none of this sticks. Our reaction to the June 9th update is completely pointless. They don't pay attention to what we are saying, and we get more of the same. Matter of fact, because it's Sony, probably something a whole lot more heavily monetized. Considering nobody is buying PS5s right now because they're too expensive, or PlayStation Portals for that matter. My concern is that anything past the point of what we have just becomes soulless live service slop, only being made for the purpose of filling out a spreadsheet of business earnings and making sure that the color red is very, very minimal on that spreadsheet. My concern is that Destiny beyond this point becomes Destiny in name only, and all of the spirit that was funneled into this game is just gone. So no, making a judgment based entirely off of the broad generalization of the state of Western games as it sits now, as well as Western live service titles, no, in this current state, I don't want any more Destiny content, because I don't want sweaty fat dudes in suits and ties running my favorite game into the fucking ground. And if it weren't for the fact that I was recording this at 4:30 in the morning when everybody is right now asleep, I'd probably be yelling these last couple points into the mic. At any rate, I want to thank those of you who stuck it out to the end and gave me a chance to explain this trash title for this video. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want Destiny 3 being made in the current state today. I mean, as I was sitting there making these Twitter hashtags and commenting that we want Destiny 3 photo on anything Sony related, I really had to stop and look at the what ifs. And on the one hand, we would get the continuation to a phenomenal story, especially where it left off. But on the other hand, I don't think I'm okay with a big corporation putting the corpse of its fresh kill on wires and dancing it around like a puppet. And of course, I really do hope I'm proven wrong if it does happen, and that's a very big if. I really, really want to be proven wrong, but in truth, I don't think I'm going to be proven wrong. Whether way off in the future, 10, 20 years down the line, whatever, we get a Destiny 3 or we just don't get one at all, I don't think I'm going to be proven wrong. Again, thank you guys for watching. I think you guys enjoyed listening to this about as much as I enjoyed making it, which was not at all. So if you somehow leave a like, I'm going to assume that it's more because you agree with what I'm saying versus actually liking the video. And if that's the case, then I hope on top of that like, I've earned your subscription as well. If, of course, you're interested in cyberpunk style content past this point, because as much as I want to put Destiny content on this channel up, this is a mostly themed channel, and these past two videos are anomalies. And that's not to say that I'm not going to put Destiny content up, it just will be on a secondary channel whenever I get around to creating that. So if you want to see me just goofing off either by myself or with a couple friends, when that channel goes up and when that content goes up, I will put it, I guess, in a text post on YouTube and, you know, Twitter and all that. Anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you later.